Last video for 1.6, we have a few more radical equations. Okay. And let's look at E. X to the 5/4 equals 32. In case you're wondering, well, wait, I don't see any roots. How is this a radical equation? You have to remember from your algebra this rule right here. I'll put it right here. That x to the a to the b is equal to x to the a times b. Okay. That would be like x to the 5th to the 1/4 equals x to the 5/4. Okay, so those are just from rules of exponents. And then from there, this is the 4th root of x to the 5th, or the 4th root of x all raised to the 5th. I guess it's a little easier to see what I wrote up here, is to realize that this is the same as either one of these depending on how we want to write it. Okay, so sometimes we have a radical equation that looks like this. Okay, now we could turn it back into one of these forms, but I think I know an easier way. Okay, and you can do it however you want. If you want to see it a different way, just let me know. But if I have x to the 5/4, now I just want a single x to the 1st power. But here's the thing. What if I were to raise both sides to the reciprocal of this, 4/5? What is 5/4 times 4/5? Oh yeah, that's 1. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to raise both sides to the 4/5 power, which I can do if I do it to both sides. Okay, that's the same as taking a 5th root and then raising it to the 4th power. Okay, really think about that for a sec. Really dig deep back into your algebra. Okay, so when we do that, let's think about this. This will now be just x. Okay, 5/4 times 4/5 using this rule is just x to the 1st power. Now, there's two ways I could write this. Okay, the easier way in this case is to write as 32. The 5 on bottom, just like I wrote up here, means 5th root. Whatever's on bottom, it's that type of root. And then it's raised to the 4th power. That's one way I could write it. The reason I want to write it that way, instead of writing it as 32 to the 4th and then taking the 5th root, which I suppose you could with a calculator, is because I know the 5th root of 32. I know the 5th root of 32 is just 2. So I have 2 to the 4th power. And 2 to the 4th power is just 16. So x is equal to 16. At least I think it is. So I'll go through, I will check it, and I want to know if 16 to the 5/4, okay, is equal to 32. Now, for purposes of checking these, you can type something to the 5/4 power in your calculator. You do want to keep it in parentheses, though, otherwise it'll get confused, okay? So 16 to the 5/4 is the same as the 4th root of 16 to the 5th. The 4th root of 16 is 2, and we have 2 to the 5th is left over, which we know 2 to the 5th is 32. So our answer is 16. That's our only answer in the solution set here. If I look at F here, okay, I have x minus 4 to the 2/3, and this one is a good one to really put a star by here, okay? So I have x minus 4 to the 2/3 power. If we do the same thing, let's raise both sides to the 3/2 power, okay? Now we got to be careful here, okay? Up here, when I raised to the 4/5 power, I was taking a 5th root. If you remember, when you have an odd index on your root, you don't need to put a plus or minus. Here, though, what we're going to end up doing is we're going to be taking a square root of this. So this is the square root of 16 then to the 3rd power, okay? So if we're taking a square root, what do we have to remember to do? If this is even down here, we have to remember a plus or minus, okay? In fact, to be more proper, I should put the plus or minus here as well, okay? So that means x minus 4 is equal to plus or minus square root of 16 is 4, so 4 cubed. x minus 4 equals plus or minus 64. That means x is equal to 4 plus or minus 64 if I add 4 to both sides. So 4 plus 64, we're looking at a possible 68, and 4 minus 64, we're looking at a possible negative 60. But of course, what do we have to do? We always have to check these. So now I'm going to go through and I'm going to check them. So check. Okay. So let's see, let's check 68 first. Is 68 minus 4 to the 2/3 equal to 16? Well, that's 64 to the 2/3. Okay. Well, I know that this is the cubed root of 64 and then squared. Cubed root of 64 is 4, and so this whole part right here inside the parentheses is 4, and that value squared, and I know that is equal to 16. So 68 down here checks out. Let's check negative 60. Negative 60. So I have negative 60 minus 4 to the 2/3, is it equal to 16? Well, that's negative 64 to the 2/3. That I want to know if that's equal to 16. And I know that this means we have the cubed root of negative 64, and that's going to be squared. The cubed root of negative 64 is negative 4. So in the parentheses, that's negative 4, and that value is squared. Negative 4 squared is 16. So this one also checks out. Okay, so I have negative 60. That's also in my solution set. Okay, so I had both answers. Now, I only did do one where we did have an extraneous solution. They do pop up probably almost every other problem. So please, please, please remember to check these answers. All right, that wraps up 1.6.